Your child stares at the plate. The food is right there. It is not touching anything else. You even put it on a separate corner. And still, they will not eat it. You have tried everything. You have begged. You have bargained. You have explained, in perfectly reasonable terms, that it is just a piece of broccoli. None of it works. And the more you push, the more your child pulls away, until what started as dinner becomes a standoff that nobody wins. Here is the thing. Your child is not being dramatic. They are not testing you. And they are almost certainly not doing this on purpose. Their brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And when you understand what that actually means, everything you thought you knew about picky eating gets turned completely upside down. This is not about vegetables. It is not about manners. It is about survival. Go back about 200,000 years. Your ancestors did not have grocery stores. They did not have nutritional labels or food safety regulations or expiration dates. They had forests, and rivers, and fields full of plants they had never seen before. And in that world, the wrong bite could kill you. Evolutionary biologists call this phenomenon food neophobia. Neophobia means fear of the new. And when it comes to food, that fear is not a bug in the human operating system. It is a core feature. Researcher Paul Rozin at the University of Pennsylvania spent decades studying the psychology of disgust and food aversion. What he found was that humans, across every culture on Earth, show a measurable resistance to unfamiliar foods. It is universal. It is ancient. And in children, it is operating at full intensity. Here is why. The most dangerous window for food poisoning in human history was early childhood. A toddler exploring the world is also a toddler putting things in their mouth. The brain of a young child evolved to be maximally suspicious of anything new and edible, because that caution kept them alive long enough to pass their genes forward. The children who happily ate every unfamiliar thing they found? Many of them did not survive to become your ancestors. So when your child pushes away a food they have never tried, they are not being irrational. They are running a program that protected human children for hundreds of thousands of years. The problem is that the program has not yet received the update that says you are now living in a world where broccoli is not poisonous. But that is only half of the story. Because food neophobia alone does not explain why kids refuse things they have actually tried before and did not like. For that, you need to understand something researchers call the mere exposure effect. Psychologist Robert Zajonc first described the mere exposure effect in 1968. His finding was radical in its simplicity. The more times you are exposed to something, the more you tend to like it. Not because the thing changes. Because your brain does. Familiarity, it turns out, is one of the most powerful drivers of preference in the human mind. Your brain uses familiarity as a shortcut for safety. If you have encountered something many times and survived, your brain begins to file it under known and acceptable. Now apply this to food. Studies suggest that a child may need to be exposed to a new food somewhere between 10 and 15 times before they begin to accept it. 10 to 15 times of seeing it on a plate, smelling it, maybe touching it, maybe putting a tiny piece near their mouth and spitting it out. All of that counts. All of that is actually building neural pathways that gradually shift the food from the unknown category to the known category. Most parents give up long before they reach 10 exposures. Which is completely understandable. Watching your child reject the same thing over and over feels pointless. But from the brain's perspective, every single exposure is working, even when it looks like nothing is happening. There is another layer here that most people miss entirely. And it has to do with texture. Food preferences in children are not just about taste. They are about sensory experience as a whole. Researchers at the University of Illinois studied the sensory profiles of children who were classified as extremely picky eaters. What they found was that many of these children were not just disliking flavor. They were genuinely overwhelmed by texture, by temperature, by the way food felt in their mouth, and even by how it smelled before it reached them. The mouth is extraordinarily sensitive. It has more sensory receptors per square inch than almost anywhere else on the human body. For a child whose sensory system is still calibrating itself, a food that feels slimy or mushy or has an unexpected texture can trigger a physical response that is not about willpower at all. It is about sensory processing. And demanding that a child simply eat through that experience is a bit like asking someone to walk calmly through something that feels, to their nervous system, genuinely alarming. This is even more pronounced in children with sensory processing differences, which are far more common than most people realize. Pediatric occupational therapist Lucy Jane Miller has spent years studying what she calls sensory processing disorder, and her research suggests that extreme food refusal in children is often less about preference and more about how the brain is interpreting the signals it is receiving. The food does not just taste wrong. It feels wrong. And the child has very limited ability to override that signal. Now here is the part that changes everything about how you handle dinner. Pressure makes it worse. Every study on the subject points in the same direction. When children are forced, pressured, bribed, or threatened into eating a new food, their aversion to that food increases. Not temporarily. Measurably and lastingly. A landmark study by Leanne Birch at Penn State University followed children's eating behavior over time and found that parental pressure around food was one of the strongest predictors of restricted eating later in life. The more control parents exerted over what a child ate, the less variety the child sought out as they got older. Your child's brain is not a locked door that pressure can open. It is a threat detector. And when eating a new food becomes associated with anxiety, conflict, and distress, the brain files that food under dangerous. Not because of how it tastes. Because of how the experience around it felt. So what does work? Repeated neutral exposure. Not forced tasting. Just presence. The food on the plate, not made a big deal of, not requiring any action. Just there, as part of the landscape of dinner, over and over again, until the brain stops registering it as a threat. Modeling matters more than most parents expect. Children watch what the people around them eat. Developmental psychologist Lori Baxter found that children were significantly more likely to try a new food when they observed a trusted adult eating it with enjoyment, not performing enjoyment, but genuinely eating it normally, than when they were asked to try it directly. The brain learns by watching. It calculates whether something is safe in part by checking whether the people around them are eating it without consequence. Involvement also changes everything. Children who are included in food preparation, who help wash vegetables or stir things in a bowl or pick something out at the market, show measurably higher willingness to taste that food later. The physical familiarity precedes the edible familiarity. The food stops being an unknown thing on a plate and becomes a thing they already know from handling it. And perhaps most importantly, separating the emotional weight from the meal itself. Dinner should not be a negotiation. It should not be a lecture. The science is clear that the more neutral and low pressure the eating environment, the faster a child's natural acceptance of new foods develops. None of this means your child will eat everything. It means the path to a wider palate is quieter than most people expect. It is longer. It involves a lot of meals where nothing appears to happen, while things are actually happening inside a brain that is slowly, steadily, recategorizing the world from dangerous to safe. That plate your child is staring at right now? That broccoli, sitting untouched in the corner you made sure nothing was touching? Your child's brain is already processing it. Already storing information about it. Already taking one more tiny step toward the day when it will not seem strange at all. You started this thinking your child was refusing food. But now you know what they were actually doing was something far older, and far more human, than stubbornness. They were surviving. The same way every one of your ancestors survived. One careful, cautious, slow to trust bite at a time,